Hello everyone, this is Debates and Discussions yet again, and thank you for being very patient with me. I'm going to have Tulip from the Women's Equality Party on in a minute, and it's just going to be a post-local elections thing because I was planning to get her before, but that doesn't seem to transpire, but now I can put her on, and yeah, I'm just going to play one jingle. Hopefully I should get her on, and yeah, I'll just play the song.
Debates and discussions. Post-local election special.
In case you're wondering, that was the from Killing Jokes Democracy, which I played before, and now it's after, so I played the Nine Inch Nails remix. I'm very nerdy, as you can see. Anyway, before I start, I want to say congratulations to both Stefanos and Noanu, if I pronounced that wrong, I apologise, and Kieran Fort for getting getting elected as a Conservative council for Southgate, they're getting re-elected in Hatfield South West. Condolences to Deborah Collins, who didn't manage to win in EnfieldTownWard, but they were working well, and all the rest of it. But now I'm going to ring someone who, thankfully, has given me the very kind her time of day, and I'm just going to ring her now. Let's get going.
Hello.
Hello, is this Tulip?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's Edward Howe, and I'm ringing you for my radio show of Debates and Discussions. Thank you very much for coming on the air.
That's all right. Let me just put my headphones on 1 second.
Oh, that's fine, yeah. Take your time. All good?
Can you still hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you fine, yeah.
Great.
Okay, sure, yeah. Thank you very much. Just for those who don't know who you are, just can you just tell the audience, what party you represent and stuff like that, please?
Yeah, so my name is Tulip Hambleton. I'm the local council candidate for Enfield for the Women's Equality Party. I stood in the EnfieldTownWard in the elections last month.
Okay, and thank you for coming on, and I just wanted to ask you some questions, just about both the party and the post-elections, and yeah, here we go. The first question is, how do you feel about the party's performance at the local elections? How do you feel about them?
Well, I was absolutely delighted about how we performed. So we got 648 votes, which is 4.3% of the people who voted for us. We beat UKIP and we beat the Lib Dems, and we were only 50 votes behind the Greens. So, for a new party that's never stood before, that's a phenomenal result. Mm-hmm. We also had 30 candidates around the country that stood in the local elections, and they all polled really, really well. And in fact, in South East London, we had 2 candidates who polled over 20% of the vote. Amazing.
Yeah, very, very well done. And how do you feel that How do you feel that your campaign went specifically? Well,
I feel that our campaign was the best that we could make it. Absolutely the best that we could do. We had a very small team, so if we'd had more members and supporters come out to canvass with us, it could have knocked on a lot more doors and had a lot more conversations. So we were very targeted in the sense that we canvassed in 2 of the polling districts and leafleted the rest twice. We had a fantastic team of dedicated leafleters. So yeah, we learned a lot. We definitely learned a lot, and there were things that we'd do differently, but in the main, we were extremely happy. Yeah.
Oh, right, and forgive me for going over similar ground. Were you happy with your specific result in EnfieldTownWard?
Yes. Oh, gosh, yes. With the resources that we had, I think I was thinking maybe in the region of 400 votes, so to get 648 was absolutely brilliant. And in fact, what we noticed when we were at the count was that we got quite a few people voting for us who also voted Conservative. So, like 2 for Conservative, 1 for us. So that was a real surprise, nice surprise actually.
Yeah, and also, if you'd managed to become a councillor and stuff like that, what would your party would have done about give me a second. Party planning to do that would have helped the country's local communities?
So the first thing I would have done if I'd been elected to council would have been to lobby and work with the relevant departments to implement a pooled budget for the violence against women and girls strategy. This is a best practice approach that Islington Council have put in place. And also they've just created a new role of champion for women and girls. So I would be lobbying Enfield Council to create that new role as well. In fact, we are going to continue to do that even though we were not elected this time. Because violence against women and girls is one of our ending violence is one of our 7 core strategies for the Women's Equality Party, because, nobody can argue that misogyny and abuse and harassment of women and girls in all areas of society is now seen to be more rife than anybody imagined. So we are in fact working with women from other political parties to get misogyny made a legal hate crime. That's one of our key approaches in the aftermath of the local council elections, because we want it tackled in all its forms wherever it occurs. We need a holistic and end-to-end approach. So we know it's occurring in schools, universities, in the workplace, on the street, in the home, and also in the media and in social media. We've heard about terrible trolling and abuse on social media. So we, of course, present day and historical abuse, of course, it includes men and boys. But in what we know very clearly is that the toll on our society just gets worse and worse from this. So suicides and self-harming, mental abuse, health issues, knife crime, eating disorders, depression, and negative health outcomes of shortening life expectancy. It just means that those who are subject to abuse are not able to reach their full potential in life, and that's totally unfair. And it just means that we have much less of an empowering society than we could have. So, and we feel that the current main parties are just not giving violence against women and girls enough of a priority. We asked them at the last general election to take up our policies, and we delivered our manifesto to all the parties, and by the way, it was only Labour that refused to take a copy of our manifesto. And we want relationship education for our young people. We want better policies for the police to follow, for victims and survivors of abuse crimes. And we also want better outcomes from the legal system. We know that the prosecution rate is abysmally low. I would also be campaigning for childcare subsidies to be protected, because it's recently been announced that childcare costs in the UK are higher than any other developed nation. And what that means is that women have a disincentive for going back to work because all their wages are just going on childcare. So there was a recent article by Larry Elliott, who's the economics editor in The Guardian, and he stated that, according to a recent McKinsey report, that advancing women's equality could add $12 trillion a year to the world economy. He was talking about Meghan Markle and the Meganomics effect. and that if the government introduced a nationwide system of universal free childcare, which is one of our 7 main fully costed policies for the Women's Equality Party, so the effect of this, of providing universal free childcare, is that getting women back to work, you don't have to pay for this, then the cost of it, which is about 28 billion estimated, it would be offset by the income tax and the national insurance receipts from having these additional women in the workforce. They would have more money to spend. So there'd be extra VAT income for the government. And of course, the benefits bill would go down. So it's a total no-brainer, really. But it does mean that getting more women back to work, that we also have to tackle at the same time the reasons for the gender pay gap and glass ceiling and sexist cultures.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, talking about all this sort of stuff, how do you feel that some may see the Women's Equality Party as a single issue party? What would you say to those people?
Well, I would argue that if people listen to everything I just said, they see that women's equality is not a single issue, that it cuts across all parts of society, and women's equality improves outcomes economically for everybody. So if I could just go over our 7 key policies, you'll see how wide-ranging they are. So equal pay and opportunity at work and in the economy, equal parenting and caregiving so that everyone has the same opportunity in family life, an end to violence against women and girls, equal representation in politics, business and industry, equal education system that creates the same opportunities for all children, equal representation and treatment in the media, and equality in healthcare and medical research to ensure better outcomes and access of provision of treatment and support.
And yeah, talking about that sort of issue, do you feel that this sort of perception about being a single issue party harmed the party's performance in these elections, or do you think that was beside the point?
No, I don't feel it did, because people are very disillusioned with the 2 main parties. This is what we found on the doorstep. People saying, "Well, I'm just not going to bother to vote this time. I'm so disappointed, and don't feel that I'm represented by the main parties," because, of course, in Enfield we've pretty much got a 2-party system with Labour and the Conservatives. But I think we're just starting down the road, so I think the reason that we did get so many votes is that people are just starting we're just starting to develop our visibility, and people are hearing us as a viable alternative to stuffy old politics the way it's always been done. We want to do politics differently. We want to be collaborative across the political spectrum. People need to work together, not against each other, in order to make progress for the most disadvantaged in our communities. And we will keep challenging the other parties, because they need to improve their policies and services on equality issues.
And what made you decide to run as a candidate, and specifically for the Women's Equality Party?
So this is the first political party I've ever joined. I feel that, having been a feminist for more than 30 years, that this was the first time I had found a political party that reflected my political thinking. So I was delighted when the party was started. And sort of for me personally, to stand up and run as a candidate, I felt that it was the Me Too movement that really sort of galvanised me into action, because it's no longer okay to think that all these stories are coming out, and misogyny and abuse has to be tackled, and it's not okay to hear these stories and not stand up to do something about it. So I'm really proud to have stood as the first ever Women's Equality Party candidate in Enfield. So now, with I think the next elections are 4 years away, unless there are any by-elections in the meantime. So our task now is to grow our branch so that we're a much stronger force to be reckoned with. And so we need to grow our membership. We'll support the initiatives that are already being put forward by the council in the areas of our key policies. And we'll also support initiatives that are around Enfield that do support women already, like the Enfield Women's Centre and Ponders End. And there are other women's support groups like Sahili and Solace Women's Aid who run the refuges. There's a lot of work to be done, outside of just running for council. So, yeah. But also, because I'm originally from New Zealand, and New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the vote 125 years ago. And it just horrifies me that after 125 years, there's still so much to do to get equality for women. And it's a thing about, this may be a bit challenging for some people to hear, but it just seems to me that we are where we are because the current systems of power, the ones who are in charge of those systems, the ones who benefit the most from it, and, let's face it, it's mainly rich white men, I'm going to say it. So they're not easily going to give up their power and their benefits, and it's always kind of been about women, and it's up to women and oppressed minorities to change that system because it's not going to be changed for us. So that's my reason.
And who would you say you look up to politically, either the political, just general politician or just generally otherwise, maybe?
Well, the first person I want to mention is Sophie Walker, who's our party leader. She is so inspiring. She's so knowledgeable. She's so passionate and articulate and courageous. She challenges government. She challenges the media wherever she's seeing inequality occurring or being revealed. It's a lot of it's hidden, and so we're just starting to hear about it more and more. And the women who started the Women's Equality Party, so it's Sandy Toksvig and Catherine Mayer, they're great heroes of mine. And also the current Women Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, and the previous one, Helen Clark. They're real inspirations to me. Helen Clark's been, I think, number 3 in the United Nations, and she's continuing her to be very politically active in the field of Indigenous rights as well. She was in Africa recently. The woman who started the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke. Many women writers like Audre Lorde. I could go on and on.
Fair enough. And what do you feel you bring to the party? And forgive me for going over already touched ground, but what would you have brought to the council had you been elected to EnfieldTownWard as well?
So I think one of the main things is that I've got a very passionate and genuine commitment to the advancement of women in Enfield. I'm a project manager. I'm a businesswoman. I bring that I see this as a long-term project in a way. I've been a member of the Athena Business Women's Network in Enfield. I've run an online organic wine business and wine bar in the Dugdale Centre. I've got a wide network of connections locally, so I would draw on all those connections to be a passionate advocate for residents' concerns. I know that some of the previous councillors have not run regular ward forums, and I think that's a very important sort of outlet for to be available to listen to residents' concerns. So ward forums and surgeries are really important so that you're available for people to come to you with their issues. And I would also pressurise the council in areas that I feel that they're not as transparent as they could be. So with all the empty shops in Enfield Town, the council does have a town regeneration plan, but I feel that it's not publicised widely enough. I feel it's not brought to the people. It's more like you have to go to them to find out anything about it, and people are very worried about how run down our town is getting, and I think that needs to be an active stance by the council to engage people about how we together solve that problem.
And also, I just wanted to do a more broader sense. You said earlier that you gave your manifesto to all the main party, but you said did you say only Labour rejected it, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
Yeah, why did they reject it, if you don't mind me asking? Do you know, or is it just general?
No, they didn't give us an answer. We feel that, I think we found that they're quite reluctant to work collaboratively with us, but we've had great collaboration with the Green Party in particular and a lot of our constituencies. But Labour, we've been accused by Labour of stealing their votes, which is quite laughable because that they even think they own votes. So it's about challenging them. It's about getting as many votes as possible so that we are seen as the viable contenders, and in the sense that people are voting for us because they like our policies, which will make the other parties sit up and take notice of what we're doing, and hopefully take on more of what we're about.
All right. And on that front, would you say you've gotten on with the other major parties, or just general parties you've given your manifesto to a bit better, I guess, because they accept your manifesto? Have you got better with the other parties as a unit, you think?
Well, this was around the general election last year, and although they accepted our policies, they haven't particularly engaged with us following that. So, no, I would say there's a lot more room for improvement in that kind of collaboration. Yeah, I think once we get a councillor elected or an MP elected, because we're currently contesting, we're standing a brilliant candidate called Mandu Reid in the Lewisham East parliamentary by-election. So, it may take one of our members, one of our candidates getting elected for them to really take us seriously. So that's definitely what we're working towards.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about other parties, and I've just the reason I'm asking this next question because I've asked the other people who've heard on my show about this. Is there anyone in any of the other parties you have any sort of admiration for, or not particularly?
Yes, I think some of the women, the Labour women MPs in particular, who stood up for against harassment in Westminster, women like Jess Phillips or Stella Creasy, I have great admiration for them because in a sense they're putting themselves above the firing line. They're coming in for a lot of trolling and online harassment, and also obviously Diane Abbott and Hackney. It's utterly horrendous what she has been subjected to in social media. So yes, those are definitely women that I very much admire in public life.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about us starting your candidate in Lewisham East. So, how do you feel that campaign's going? Are you heavily involved with it?
Yeah, it's going incredibly well. We're getting really, really positive feedback on the doorstep. Yes, I've been down there canvassing twice now. I'm helping with data management as well in the background, so that we can feed in to our campaigning knowledge of how people voted in the local elections in May, and also the last general election, or the fact they did vote. You want to be engaged with people who are already engaged in the democratic process and are more likely to have more success with conversations with those sorts of people. So yes, I'll be going there canvassing again this coming weekend, and it's a full on in the last week. Will be all hands on deck. Big teams down there. And it's great fun. It's really great fun. I really enjoy talking to people on the doorstep. You hear people's concerns firsthand, and it's really valuable information to take away and for the branch to engage with those people on those issues.
And how do you think you'll do in in those elections? Do you think there are any parties you'll easily beat, for example, and how do you think you'll fare?
I think possibly a similar result to what I achieved in Enfield. I'm absolutely certain we'll beat UKIP. Probably the Lib Dems. Not sure about the Greens. I think they've probably been around for a long time. But we talked about. I think that it's possible that the Labour candidate may get elected again, but really that doesn't send a very different message to Theresa May when you're swapping in like for like. It doesn't. Why would Theresa May be worried about another Labour candidate getting in? That's not going to challenge her at all. That's why we feel that having a Women's Equality Party candidate elected is going to make a major difference and a shake-up to the conversation in Westminster.
And you talked about Theresa May and stuff like that. Do you feel that even though she's the second female Prime Minister, she's not very good at doing very much for women in Parliament, do you think?
Yes, I do agree with that. I think the fact that she's not, like after the abortion referendum result in the Republic of Ireland, the fact that she's not taking on board immediately the fact that Northern Ireland needs to reform as well is a very worrying trend. It does seem that the DUP has some influence over how she's approaching that particular issue about Northern Ireland. So, yeah. She's not my favourite person, I'd have to say.
Neither am I. And I'm assuming on that front you're not the biggest fan of Eileen Foster, the leader of the DUP in Northern Ireland.
No.
And yeah, earlier we were talking about London and such. I've asked again all the other candidates this. I just wanted to get your thoughts. How do you think Sadiq Khan is doing as London member? Because Lewisham East is a London seat, and I just asked all the other candidates, what do you think of him as a mayor? What do you think?
I think he's utterly brilliant. He's putting women's equality at the forefront of his policies as well. The reason for the Lewisham East by-election is that Heidi Alexander has joined Sadiq Khan as deputy mayor, which is why she's stepping down from her Labour constituency there. So, he's absolutely, putting his money where his mouth is in terms of appointing a woman deputy mayor. I don't know the statistics about the rest of his senior management team, what the makeup is, but yes, he's absolutely made very positive statements about women's equality. So to have the London mayor being very equality positive is a hugely great start for. And hopefully the businesses in London will be taking notice of that as well, in terms of those that haven't even yet reported their gender pay gap, for example.
And I guess on that front, if you did win at Lewisham East, for example, do you think there'll be would you think there'll be many clashes with between him as a mayor, or do you think it'll just be mainly plain sailing? Do you think?
Well, what's interesting about the candidates and of all the many of the parties in Lewisham East is that they are black and ethnic minority women. Being selected, so that's a fantastic development and absolutely what we want to see. So I don't see any initial, I can't think of any initial areas where that would create conflict with Sadiq Khan. No.
And I guess also on that front, just because again I've asked the other candidates, who do you think the best and worst Prime Minister we've ever had? Who do you think has been the best and worst Prime Minister we've ever had?
I can't think of it in my head. Margaret Thatcher. There you go.
Best or worst, sorry?
Margaret Thatcher, the worst.
Okay.
Best, I couldn't really say. I can't think of anyone that I'm hugely admiring. No, sorry, can't answer that.
Fair enough. Just trying to think about the questions. And what sort of things are you doing again at Lewisham East? What the main things you're doing? Is it just like leafleting, or are there any other things?
No, canvassing, door knocking.
Okay, sure, yeah, fair enough.
It's all about the conversations. When you meet people face to face.
And so just trying to think of questions. What do you is there any like current MPs specifically, because I asked you about MPs you liked, any current MPs that you really don't particularly like or whatever in any of the major parties?
Yes, the main one that springs to mind is Philip Davies in Shipley, who is a real misogynist, and in fact Sophie Walker, our party leader, stood against him in the general election. His voting record is abysmal on women's rights in Parliament, and he's an active misogynist, so we were very keen to unseat him. He's the first person that springs to mind from that question.
Alright, and also that front, what would you say in terms of like what do you think is like the best sort of government in the world when it comes to like sort of pushing for women's rights and stuff like that? Which model do you think we should adopt? All right.
New Zealand, Iceland, Scandinavian countries. Yeah, particularly Iceland, where there is definite equality, which has been brought in through legislation. Yeah, that's on my bucket list to go and visit very soon.
Fair enough.
Because of that.
And also, I just trying to think of questions. I'm afraid. You talked about you originally lived in New Zealand. What made you decide to come to Britain? Just as a random question to throw out there, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure. Well, New Zealand is literally the other side of the world, and a very long way from anywhere. So, and in fact, my grandmother was British. She's from Lancashire. So I always kind of had a yearning to, in particular, to learn French. So I always wanted to come to Europe and sort of go and live in France or a French-speaking country. And in fact, I did that. I ended up living in Geneva and working at the United Nations. So yeah, and I love travelling. So I love the fact that you can hop across to Europe so easily, which is one of the things I would miss if I ever moved back to New Zealand. But it's a very beautiful country, and I go back and visit my family very often. So, but yeah, I've kind of made a life here, and I've had lots of opportunities and done lots of study that I possibly wouldn't have been able to do if I'd stayed there. So yeah, it's about expanding horizons, and in fact, it's quite a thing with New Zealand young people. a lot of them do travel before they either go back and settle down or settle down as well in the world.
And how do you feel that the Britain compares to New Zealand? Do you think just particularly with this line of questioning?
I think both countries are really struggling with poverty. There is such a wide gap between, the different ends of the spectrum of society, rich and poor, and this is also very noticeable in New Zealand. And Jacinda Ardern is actively working to engage with the communities that are suffering the most to find out what solutions they feel would best benefit them. And austerity, the Tory government austerity measures has just been disastrous for the poorest people in this country. And with the rise in food banks and people not having access to public funds, and I think it's a really important feature that is acknowledged, that the Tory government has no respect or concern for the poor, and it continually cuts benefits to the poorest people instead of ensuring that the rich are sharing their wealth more equitably.
Mm-hmm. Is there any women in the Conservative Party that you like, just out of curiosity?
Nobody springs to mind.
All right. What do you think has been? I guess what do you think has been the main benefit of being in the Women's Equality Party instead of the Women's Equality Party?
The main benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Well, the main benefit is that we need to be contributing more in society. We need a more equal society so that 50% of the population have more fulfilling lives. It's a system that it's institutionalized misogyny where women are seen as not as capable by the men who are in control. This is why, there's only 6 women on FTSE 100, the boards of FTSE 100 companies. There's only 5 out of 21 permanent secretaries in Whitehall. There's only 1 woman out of the 9 members on the Bank of England committee that sets interest rates. There's never been a female chancellor. It's systemic. So a group of women coming together to form the political party to change that system is the best thing that I've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm. And this is probably going to be the last question because I'm just about to wrap up one of the last questions. What do you think has been the main detriment in terms of campaigning and stuff like that? Has it taken a lot of your social life, for example?
Yes, it did mean that the rest of my life had to be put on hold. It was exhausting. The weather was terrible. It was rain, torrential rain and snow, and it was freezing cold. It was physically very challenging. But for all that, it feels like a huge achievement. So and very rewarding in the long run. So I'm very, very pleased that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you met the leaders of your party and stuff like that, or not? Oh, okay.
Yeah, regularly. We're out canvassing together on Sunday in Lewisham East.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just probably on the final question at this point, I guess, what has it been like to be campaigning in Lewisham East? Has the response been very positive by knocking on doors? So if this is covering previously discussed territory.
Yeah. It's been great to be in a much bigger team. Actually, that's one of the things I noticed, because the vibe amongst a bigger team is just so much. You uplift each other. We're all in this together. We all have a common goal. common target. So it's really encouraging, and you're getting to know other women in your party a lot better as well, and you spend time with them on the canvassing trail. It's great, really good.
Mm-hmm. And the final question, just to wrap this up, just because I'm on a radio station, what is your favourite song? I'll just play that, and then, yeah, that'll be the end of the programme today.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You can get it immediately.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
My favourite song is by a group called Taste of Honey, and it's Oogie Oogie Oogie.
Okay, give me a second. Yeah, give me a second, I'll just play that now. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'll just play that now. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and take care, and good luck in Lewisham East as well. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so patient with me.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Join Trident Media now at hertfordshire.su/Trident Media.
That was Tulip from the Women's Equality Party, stood in EnfieldTownWard, and was the lower end of the table. You know, thank to her for coming on the show and stuff like that. And yeah, that was one of my post-local election specials. I might do one or two more of these. I'm planning maybe to get the only Liberal Party candidate who won, as in the Liberal Party, not the Liberal Democrats Party. The Liberal Party who split from the Liberal Democrats in 1989. Yeah, so that was all, and I hopefully should have some more stuff for you over the next few weeks. And you've still got me for a little bit. I hope none of you are too disappointed. And good luck to her in Lewisham East. I'll be canvassing in Lewisham East for a different party. I'm not saying or something like that. And yeah, I just hope. I thank you again to Tulip for coming on my show. Very patient with me because I've been, you know, for a lot of full starts, but thankfully I managed to get on the air, which was terrific. And thank you for listening, everybody. And I'll be heading off. And thank you very much.
Listen anywhere on campus from tridentmedia.org.
Debates and discussions. Post-local election special.
We're Trident Media, the home of print, radio and TV for students.